Hi everyone! In this tutorial we're going to be making this bear in a kimono. Now why are we making a bear in a kimono, you may ask? Well, today's video is in collaboration with Billy Matsunaga of the new YouTube channel Billy Matsunaga. She is a kimono teacher slash model slash TV personality living in Kumamoto, Japan, and she has just started a YouTube channel all about her life and her obsession with kimono. Now, Billy is a really old friend of mine. She and I met when I first moved to Japan about 8 years ago, and she still lives in Japan in Kumamoto, and the kuma in Kumamoto is bear, so that's why we're doing a bear in a kimono. But really, you can use any of my standard head and body patterns with this same kimono. So once you finish making this tutorial, head on over to Billy Matsunaga's channel and make sure you check out her videos. There's a card somewhere on the screen and also a link down in the description. Let's get started! Let's go over our materials. You are going to need a bunch of different colors of yarn, and they are all very free. So you can decide on your own what colors of yarn you want to use, but you need one for the body of the bear, an alternate one for the snout of the bear, one for the kimono, one for the belt of the kimono, one for the collar of the kimono, another color for the sandals, and an optional color for if you're going to do a pattern on the kimono. You can visit studiocrafty.com for a complete list of all of the materials for this pattern. To go with my yarns today, I'm using a size G 4mm crochet hook, a pair of 12mm safety eyes, a tapestry needle large enough to thread my yarn, pins so we can pin everything in place, and the last thing we're going to need is yarn scraps or toy stuffing. Today I have a bunch of yarn scraps. And that is everything we'll need to make a bear in a kimono. Now in this tutorial we're going to go over how to make a girl in a kimono, but there's also a variation for how to make a boy in a kimono. So if you head over to studiocrafty.com and look up this pattern, you can see the instructions for how to make a boy in a kimono. The link is in the description below. Now before we get started, if you are new to crochet, please go and check out my basic stitches for Amigurumi video. There I go over all of the stitches you're going to need to complete this tutorial. In this tutorial we're not going to go over the stitches, and I do the tutorial assuming that you already know how to do the stitches. So if you're brand new to crochet, I highly advise that you go and check out that video first and then come back here. There is a link to that also down in the description below. Okay, let's get started. We're starting with the head and body, so you're going to need the yarn color you've selected for your bear and your crochet hook. And we are going to start by making a magic ring with 6 single crochets. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And pull on your yarn tail to close the ring. Next, we're going to increase from 6 stitches to 12 stitches by increasing in every stitch. So in the first stitch we single crochet 1, and in the same stitch we increase for 2. Three, and increase for 4. 5, and increase for 6. 7, and increase for 8. 9, and increase for 10. 11, and increase for 12. So now we have 12 stitches. Next we're going to do an increase round, and we're going to increase from 12 stitches to 18 stitches by increasing on every multiple of 3. So in your first stitch, we single crochet 1, 2, and in the same stitch we increase for 3. 4, 5, and increase for 6. Now repeat that pattern 4 more times until you have 18 stitches. Next we're going to do another increase round, and we're going to increase from 18 stitches to 24 stitches by increasing on every multiple of 4. So in the first stitch we single crochet 1, 2, 3, and in the same stitch we increase for 4, 5, 6, 7, and in the same stitch we increase for 8. Now repeat that pattern 4 more times until you have 24 stitches. Next we're going to do an increase round, and we're going to increase from 24 stitches to 30 stitches by increasing on every multiple of 5. So in the first stitch we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, and in the same stitch we increase for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and in the same stitch we increase for 10. Now repeat that pattern 4 more times until you have 30 stitches. Next we're going to do an increase round, and we're going to increase from 30 stitches to 36 stitches by increasing on every multiple of 6. So in the first stitch we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the same stitch we increase for 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and in the same stitch we increase for 12. Now repeat that pattern 4 more times until you have 36 stitches. Next we're going to do an increase round, and we're going to increase from 36 stitches to 42 stitches by increasing on every multiple of 7. So in the first stitch we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in the same stitch we increase for 7. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and in the same stitch we increase for 14. Now repeat that pattern 4 more times until you have 42 stitches. Next we're going to do a couple rounds where we single crochet continuously around. So I'm going to use my yarn tail as a stitch marker, and we're just going to crochet 1 in every stitch for the next 7 rounds. So single crochet 1 in every stitch for the next 7 rounds, and I will meet you back here when that is all done. Okay, so I've come to the end of my 7 rounds, and now we're going to do a decrease round, and we're going to decrease from 42 stitches down to 36 stitches by decreasing on every multiple of 7. So in the first stitch we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 and 7 are decreased together by going through the front loop of both of those stitches, yarning over, pulling through, and we've just made a decrease. Now 8, and single crochet for 9, 10, 11, 12, and then stitches 13 and 14 are decreased together. Now repeat that pattern 4 more times until you have 36 stitches. Next we're going to do another decrease round, and we're going to decrease from 36 stitches down to 30 stitches by decreasing on every multiple of 6. So in the first stitch we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 and 6 are decreased together. 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 11 and 12 are decreased together. Now repeat this pattern 4 more times until you have 30 stitches. Next we're going to do another decrease round, and we're going to decrease from 30 stitches down to 24 stitches by decreasing on every multiple of 5. So in the first stitch we single crochet 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 are decreased together. 6, 7, 8, and then 9 and 10 are decreased together. Now repeat this pattern 4 more times until you have 24 stitches. So in this last decrease round, we're going to decrease from 24 stitches down to 18 stitches by decreasing on every multiple of 4. So in the first stitch, we single crochet 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 are decreased together. 5, 6, and then 7 and 8 are decreased together. Now repeat this pattern 4 more times until you have 18 stitches. Alright, now we're going to move on to the body, but before we can do that we need to change to our main kimono color. So we just need to take the kimono color's yarn tail and place it between our hook and our working yarn. And I'm just going to single crochet maybe 3 or 4 stitches to work that yarn in between. And then I'm going to change to the next color by pulling through with my brown yarn and then yarning over and pulling through with my kimono color. And I've just changed to my kimono color. In this case it's like this light blue. Alright, next we're going to do an increase round, and we're going to increase from 18 stitches up to 24 stitches by increasing on every multiple of 4. So in the first stitch, single crochet 1, 2, 3, and in the same stitch increase for 4. And now I'm going to take a moment to cut my brown yarn tail, because we don't need it anymore. And moving on for 5, 6, 7, and increase for 8. Now repeat that pattern 4 more times until you have 24 stitches. Okay, next we're going to do an increase round, and we're going to increase from 24 stitches up to 30 stitches by increasing on every multiple of 5. So in the first stitch, we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, and in the same stitch we increase for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and in the same stitch we increase for 10. Now repeat that pattern 4 more times until you have 30 stitches. Alright, next we're going to do some rounds where we just single crochet continuously around. So I'm going to take my yarn tail to mark my starting place. And we are going to single crochet continuously around for 10 rounds. So we're just going to single crochet 1 in every stitch for the next 10 rounds. And I will meet you back here when that is all done. Okay, so I've come to the end of my 10 rounds, and before we move on, we're going to take some time to attach the eyes and stuff the head. So you're going to need your 12mm safety eyes. When you're attaching your eyes, be mindful of where you changed your yarn colors, because you don't want it to be square in the middle between the eyes. Now I like to attach my eyes usually between rows 12 and 13 or 13 and 14 from the bottom, so you can test it between rows 12 and 13. If you don't like it, try it between rows 13 and 14 and just see how low you like the eyes. And then once you've got both of the eyes in and you've decided you like the positioning, you can attach the backs. Don't attach the backs until you know you like where the eyes are, because once the backs are on, they are not coming off. So I like to attach my eyes between rows 12 and 13 and usually about 11 stitches apart. And I like the placement of my eyes, so now I am going to attach the back. And before we move on, let's also take this opportunity to stuff the head. Alright, now that the head's all stuffed, we can move on. Next we're going to do a decrease round, and we're going to decrease from 30 stitches down to 24 stitches by decreasing on every multiple of 5. So in the first stitch, we single crochet 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 are decreased together. 6, 7, 8, and then 9 and 10 are decreased together. Now repeat this pattern 4 more times until you have 24 stitches. Alright, next we're going to do a decrease round, and we're going to decrease from 24 stitches down to 18 stitches by decreasing on every multiple of 4. So in the first stitch, we single crochet 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 are decreased together. 5, 6, and then 7 and 8 are decreased together. Now repeat this pattern 4 more times until you have 18 stitches. Now we're going to take this opportunity to stuff the body before we do our last decrease round. Alright, so we have one last decrease round to do, and we're going to decrease from 18 stitches down to 12 stitches by decreasing on every multiple of 3. So in the first stitch, we single crochet 1, and then 2 and 3 are decreased together. 4, and then 5 and 6 are decreased together. Now repeat that pattern 4 more times until you have 12 stitches. Alright, now we're going to sew the bottom closed, so you can cut your yarn. And you can thread your yarn tail through your tapestry needle. And the way we sew this closed is we just go through the front loop of every remaining stitch. And then once the bottom is all sewn closed, you can hide your yarn tails in the body. And then once your yarn tails are all hidden, you can cut off any excess. And this is our finished head and body. Let's add a pattern to our kimono. I'm going to be adding a sakura pattern, which is like a cherry blossom pattern, and it's just a 5-petaled flower. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to have 5 stitches all coming from a central point. So I've got some pink yarn threaded through my tapestry needle, and I've just made 1 stitch, and now I'm going to go back in to the center and over and up 1 row and 1 stitch. And then go back into the center and then go over 1 stitch. Now for a 5-petaled flower, you're going to have to go between the stitches for one of the petals. All of the other petals can go in between kind of the natural breaks in your crochet, but for one of the petals you're actually going to have to break the stitch apart, which is what I just did. If you're going to do a 6-petaled flower, then you don't have to do this, but that's just what I had to do for that to make it all symmetrical, or at least even. And now for the last petal, I'm just going down 1 row and over 1 stitch. And then back into the middle. And then once you're done with 1 flower, you can just move your needle over to the position where you want to start your next flower. And then you can just repeat that pattern until you have as many flowers as you like on your kimono. And here's my completed pattern. Alright, so here's where we're going to wrap up part 1 of this tutorial. You can continue following along in part 2. The link is down in the description below, and there is also a card probably somewhere on the screen. If you're following along at studiocrafty.com, just keep scrolling down the page and part 2 should just be right there. Alright, see you in part 2.